Hi, my name is Amin, and I'm Trichy. Today I will be talking about fiscal deficit in the context of India during this current pandemic crisis. So every year we see that the finance minister presents the union budget in front of the parliament on the last working day of February. Just before the budget and after the budget, there is this huge discussion on the budget itself, and it is being discussed like it is the next World Cup being discussed. So, what is this buzz about? We also see that during this there are terms thrown away by economic experts in newspapers and on social media. Some of the terms like revenue deficit, fiscal deficit. What does these terms exactly mean? Further on, the other day I was reading on social media, and I found out that some people are questioning about the PM Modi's relief fund. Also, what is the current financial position of the country and what it could be due to the crisis? All of this I will be explaining in this video. Before I start, let me brief you about why do government undertake some of the activities, like business activities, like for example railways, post office. Why do government undertake these activities? There are three reasons that could be leading to government pushing themselves to take these activities. The first one, it could be due to a natural monopoly. So natural monopoly is where when if a enterprise single enterprise will work this business, the per unit cost of the good will come down, and this will benefit the entire buyer. So if you see, for example, electricity, if electricity is not it's being privatized, so there will be many players. If there are many players, it will lead to not making the use of economics of scale. Similarly, there could be second reason could be the social benefit it possesses. For example, education. Now, education government subsidizes because the social benefit it possesses to a child is more than what the government expenditure could be in terms of monetary. The third reason could be because this becomes a public good. If a public good is like irrespective of income of any person, the person should be benefited with that good. For example, national security. The whether you pay or whether you don't pay, each individual will receive a national security. This goods cannot be privatized. Now, since I have discussed about why government undertakes activities, government needs to perform these activities and they need money to hold this money for the expenditure. Now, how can the government generate this expenditure? They can generate the expenditure by two ways. There is revenue expenditure and there is capital expenditure. So these are two types of expenditure that government can have. The revenue expenditure are about the day-to-day activities that government undertakes. Like it could be related to all the departments, judiciary department, working of railways. What about capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is the expenditure that is related to asset making. For example, building of Statue of Unity. That is an asset building expenditure. So, how do government finance this expenditure? They finance it through revenue receipts and capital receipts. Revenue receipts are the revenues earned through the different departments that government has: judiciary, tax department. What are the capital receipts? Now, capital receipts come when government takes loans, grants. These are the capital receipts. Now, currently, now I'll talk about fiscal deficit and revenue deficit. From the name itself, we can say that revenue deficit is the difference between the revenue expenditure and the revenue receipts. So, what is the fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit is nothing but the total expenditure minus the non-debt capital receipts. So, if the government is not able to generate enough revenue, then it will need to borrow the money. This money that it borrows is the fiscal deficit. Now, if there is fiscal deficit, they are borrowing money. If they are borrowing money, they are relying on other lenders, which makes them susceptible to bankruptcy. Now, how can they maintain this risk of not going bankrupt? First, during the current coronavirus pandemic outbreak, all the hotels, transport, communication, all the segments are affected. So, according to the recent report by SBI, it is said that the fiscal deficit is pushed to 3.88% of the GDP, where previously it was said to 3.3%. Now, the FRBM Act, which came in 2004, tells about maintaining the fiscal deficit nearly 3% of the GDP. So, if the fiscal deficit rises, what is the problem? The problem is government will need to borrow money in the future. If they borrow the money in the future, there is a demand for loan in the market. So, as I was saying, what is the problem associated with fiscal deficit? As the fiscal deficit rises, the need for the government to borrow money rises, which will make the demand for loans in the market rise. In turn, the interest rate will rise. So, when the interest rate rises, there will be less private players to invest money. And the other problem that could come is the foreign investors will see this as an opportunity, and they will flow. The foreign currency will flow in the country. When the foreign currency flows, the rupee appreciates and exports will fall, leading to trade deficit, which will again lead to a different problem. So, what is the way out? Currently, fiscal stimulus is completely wrong thing to do during this lockdown. Once the lockdown is over, fiscal measures must be targeted at industries which are hugely most severely affected by this epidemic. Next in line must be industries and sectors that are affected by the hit of this recession and whose situation has worsened because of the pandemic. The PM Fund. Now, the PM Fund, if used efficiently, there will be less panic in the market and the consumption pattern won't be severely affected. Recently, cutting down of MPs' salaries by 30% was a great move by the government. So, this expenditure will be channelized for the current crisis, and this will lead not again increase more expenditure, because this was already an existing expenditure. Thank you.